Hello, I managed to get hold of a set of these Armattan Oomph motors. They are a 2206 2300 kV sized motor. There it is there, Oomph. And these have just come out fairly recently, I think, and I managed to get hold of these through my mate Sean in Japan, who does some promotional work for Armattan. So he managed to hook me up with these, and big thank you to Chris at Armattan for sending these out to me. So you might have noticed already, just while I was holding this, that there's something a little bit different about these motors to most of the other motors that are out there, and that's this shaft arrangement here. So they don't have a longer threaded shaft that's threaded on the outside. It's actually only 5 millimeters high there, and so that's cutting down a little bit of weight, I guess. But the way that you attach your propeller, as you can see, is threaded on the inside, and you use a screw, M3 screw, and this sort of kind of like a washer, I guess you could call this, but it's shaped like that so that the screw is going to be pressing that down onto your propeller. So that means that your propeller needs to be at least 5 millimeters in height, unless you had another sort of a washer thing underneath it. I guess you could do that too. So that's how it's going to sit on there. It's not tightened there, of course, but you can get the idea. And if I turn this clockwise in this case, I'll tighten that washer down onto the propeller. And I say in this case because these motors are sold in sets of, or pairs, or a set of 4, and you'll get one of counterclockwise and one of clockwise, meaning that this screw in the top is going to be turned a different way to tighten in each case. And it's actually different to what I've become used to, in the fact that normally when the motor says clockwise, that means that you'll be tightening the nut clockwise to tighten it. And they're actually reversed here. So this one is a counterclockwise labeling, and I'm turning this clockwise to tighten it, so they're the other way around. I guess this label means which way the motor is going to spin when you look at it from the top. But that introduces a slight bit of a niggle, because it means that when you are using the other direction of motor, so in this case this is the other direction, it's going to be clockwise. I seem to have fingerprints on here. So this is a clockwise one, which means that the screw thread in here is going to be the other way round. So when I put this screw in, I'm going to be tightening this one counterclockwise, like that, to tighten it. And you might be thinking, well, the issue is that you can't really find these reverse threaded screws very easily. So if you lose that one, they're not very easy to replace, which is could be a bit of an issue. Just be careful with them. Whereas if you are able to use a normal regular thread screw like this one, you could just find these M3 screws pretty much anywhere. And I wouldn't mind betting that a lot of people watching this video will already have a whole bunch of them anyway, because they're the sort of screws that you use to screw your frame together quite often. So just looking at the inside of the motor, we have some of those really chunky wire windings. I think these look quite cool. It reminds me of the DYS motor, and one of the other motors looks a bit like that too. And it's a 4 millimeter shaft going through the middle there, so it's pretty sturdy shaft. And on the bottom here we have another interesting feature which I have not seen before. Each of the incoming wires for the coils has its own sort of a socket or a hole to thread through in the machined bottom plate. It's quite interesting. Not sure how necessary it is, but it's quite cool. And let's have a look at the one that has a screw in it still. So this also reminds me a little bit of the DYS motors, the DYS SE2205 motors that I was using a while ago. I really like the way they do this at the bottom, where you have just a single screw that lets you reach in from the bottom of your quad with the screwdriver or something to undo that screw, and then you can pull the motor bell off really quickly and easily to oil the bearings or blow out the sand, and as in my case what I was trying to do. So this screw is just a normal screw. This is always a normal clockwise screw, I think. And it has a little washer above it there, which I think is aluminium maybe. And then above that there's a little, very small brass, I think, washer or something that goes in there as well. And the bottom of the shaft protrudes just enough through here so that that little brass washer can sit in the right place. And these magnets are really strong, I found. So I haven't come across many other motors that have that much magnetism that they can sit there like that, even when it's not properly stuck on. With each motor you get 2 sets of these, so you get a washer and a screw, two sets of that, so I've obviously used one over here for this, and you get a set of 4 just normal M3 screws for mounting the motor onto your quad. It looks like M3 by 6mm screws, those ones I think. This here is a 2.5mm sized hex socket, so that's a 2.5, yeah, that's right. So that may be a little bit different to the regular screws that you have to hold your quadcopter together. These are quite often a 2mm socket. Perhaps the reason that they decided to have these different direction threads for the screw is that there's no lock nut type feature, so neither of these screws are going to be locking onto there. If you tighten them up, they're pretty tight. Like I can't, there's no way I can get that off just with my hand, of course. But when you crash, obviously you're taking a bit of a hit, and maybe hitting on a tree branch could dislodge this thread. And when that happens, you are standing a chance of losing these rather precious washers. I suppose you could use any kind of washer, maybe? So that's a good question. Maybe any kind of M3 washer might do the trick, now that I think about it, because if I take this off, I did notice that the screw is able to go all the way down into that shaft. So let's try that. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. You can get that thread all the way down. So I guess potentially any other type of washer might work. So perhaps you don't need this special one after all. Looks a lot cooler though, doesn't it? So before I put these on my quad, I'll take one of them and put it on my thrust test stand and try it with a few different propellers. I think I'll just try it on 4S because I have a huge 4S battery that'll last through lots and lots of tests without sagging too much. And mostly people running, probably running this 2206 size motor are going to be interested in blasting around with a mini quad, a high power mini quad on a 4S battery. I am a little bit concerned about what these 2206 motors are going to do to my batteries, my actual batteries for the mini quad, the smaller 1300 milliamp hour batteries, because I don't have any high C rating like 75C and the kind that all the pros are using. I only have 45C batteries. So the batteries might not like these motors too much, especially with a three-bladed prop, but we'll see how it goes. My goodness, I'm just setting up my thrust test stand, checking that everything's working, and I did a quick throttle run up to full throttle just for a very brief moment. You can see here I actually got over 1 kilogram of thrust. This is with 4S, but it's only a plain old 2-bladed plastic 5045 prop, not a bullnose one or anything. And the noise it made was quite frightening. So yeah, I definitely think that the batteries I have for my mini quad are a little bit under spec for these motors, but the one I have to do the thrust test with is a big, it's like an 8 amp hour battery, so it should be okay. Man, that's loud. And here are the results of that test. I limited it to just these 3 props here. They're only 5-inch props because it made such a ferocious noise that, man, it was really loud. I'm pretty sure my neighbours a couple of 100 meters away might have even heard that. So, yeah, I thought perhaps a 6-inch prop would just be too scary for me, so I didn't do it. But these are probably the props that I'll be using anyway. So the 5045 is a regular 5045 non-bullnose, and then that's 5045 bullnose. This is the King Kong one. and then I have also the King Kong polycarbonate 5040 3-blade props, and they're giving a little bit more thrust for about the same current as the 5045 2-blade props. So I think that is a pretty good prop to be using there. Actually, just looking at this just now, I'm wondering if these motors might be more comfortable being loaded a bit more, so maybe I should have done a 6-inch prop test. I've put the motors on the quad now, so I think I'll just leave it as this. If you want to look at some real serious test results, you can look at Ryan's site at Mini Quad Test Bench, because they did some testing on this motor as well. While I was swapping these motors out, I thought I would also swap out something else that arrived from Armattan the other day, which was these replacement arms for the quad, and that's something I thought I'd try because the arms that I've been using until now, this is my design that also came from Armattan Productions, like they did the cutting of this frame for me, but my design was like this, so it didn't have the motor legs going all the way into the middle, and I've seen a lot of designs out there that they do come into the middle, and I thought I wouldn't bother with it. But I did notice that, especially in my other quad where this plate is a little bit thinner, you sort of see a little bit of a bending after a while, and there's a bit of, I think it might also be causing a little bit of vibration and a little bit of flexing while it's flying. So instead of having that just comes into here, I've made another design, and I just ordered these pieces, not a whole new frame. You can just get from Armattan Productions, you can just get whatever pieces you need. So this time I just ordered some arms, and they are going to fit together like this so that there's no empty space in the middle, and everything from the outside of there is unchanged, and it's just this little bit in the middle that's been added. I'm not really expecting that this is going to change anything too much, but I thought it's worth a try. Okay, well, everything's together there now, ready to go for a fly. Didn't really have any problems when I was putting it together. By the way, when I was doing that thrust test before, I was using one of these to hold the propeller on. It's just a regular M3 washer, so I wouldn't get too distressed if you did lose one of these fancy aluminium washers, because you can just use a normal washer to replace it. So it's just the reverse thread screws that if you lose would be a pain in the ass. After taking the props off and on a few times to do the thrust test, and also to put them all on here while I was building, it's quite a bit more fiddly to get this screw and the washer lined up and get them in, compared to just a regular lock nut that seems to go on pretty quick. So I don't know if there's any events in the quadcopter racing world where you have to change a prop really quickly or anything like that. Pretty much if you crash, you're out of the race, I think. But if there were events like that, you might want to just stick with the normal lock nuts. They're quite a bit quicker to get off and on. Okay, let's try some flying. It's quite windy. Oh, that's not bad. It feels, when I was picking it up, like when I carried it out here, when you pick it up to carry it, it feels a bit heavier. But to fly it, it doesn't feel any different. I thought it might feel a bit sort of more weighty because of the extra weight of the motors moving up from, so the previous motors were 2205, so they should be a little bit lighter, I think. But it feels about the same sort of weight. Yeah, there's a good bit of punch. Feels quite precise. It feels a little bit smoother actually. I think before I could see a little bit more kind of tiny little wobbles and vibrations, but I don't get that now so much. I wonder if that's because the 2206 has more torque. So when the flight controller tells the motors to do something, they're actually able to do it quicker and more reliably. Okay, my battery did not like that, as I suspected. Yeah, it feels slightly smoother, I think. So it feels like, yeah, the smoothness could perhaps be a combination of the motors having more torque, and also because I changed the arms to have the solid section in the middle. So maybe I shouldn't have changed both of those things at the same time, because now I'm not exactly sure which one it might have been contributing to it more. Feels good though. Okay, we might be just about done on this battery, I think. Yeah, it feels good. So that battery I was using just then is a Turnigy Nanotech 1300 milliamp hour 4-cell, and it's a 45C rated one. Now I'm going to use a Zippy Compact 40C, and this battery I think is probably not going to be very happy with the extra power being sucked out of it from these motors, but we'll see. Ooh, that was close. Oh yeah, we got a warning already there. So I guess, even though the quad doesn't feel heavier, it's got to be heavier. Because on a fresh battery like this, I could have done a climb like up those trees like I just did, like this here. That usually doesn't set off my battery alarm. Well, it did the first time I did it, just now. Looks like I might have to upgrade my batteries now, eh? Not sure that I have a whole lot more to say on this for now. So, whoa, ah shit. Probably what I'll have to do is use these motors for a few weeks, and then I'll be able to come back and give a bit better evaluation of how they fare through a few crashes and stuff. So that's the first crash ever with these motors, so I don't really know much about how it's going to go yet. So that's about all I can say for now, I think. It's a little bit tricky to tell exactly how much of the change was due to the motors and how much was due to this having a more solid centre section in the quad, but I'd say most of it was due to the motors. And it didn't occur to me until afterwards that I haven't actually flown a mini quad hard like that with 2206 motors at all before. The only other ones that I've tried in the 2206 size are these ones, but they're a different kV rating, and I was flying them with larger two-blade props, and I wasn't really doing any acro or any stuff like that, so it's not really a direct comparison. So what I ended up doing for that time that I was trying to narrate while I was flying was actually just comparing these 2206 motors with my other 2205 motors, which is not really a fair comparison, I don't think. But yeah, they certainly haul ass pretty good, and I'm liking them so far. They do seem to give you the main thing I noticed was much less influence from prop wash when you flip around and you're heading down through your prop wash. I didn't really seem to feel it at all, actually, so that was really nice. And even though it makes the quad overall a little bit heavier, I didn't feel that while I was flying, so that's nice as well. By the end of the evening I flew 5 batteries and I had a few crashes, and at this point I haven't had any problems with these coming loose or even looking like they were doing anything in the way of coming loose at all. So I guess they're pretty good at, you don't need a nylock nut or anything. They're going to be just fine, I think. So yeah, liking these motors so far. As I've already said, the only real niggle that is that if you get the clockwise, whichever it is, that uses the reverse threaded screw, that could be a bit of a nuisance because you're probably going to lose it, I would imagine, at some point. And it's not as easy to get hold of as the normal thread screws. But apart from that, yeah, no problems. They're great. So I'll have to maybe crash them a whole lot more. I mean, something's got to go wrong. I would imagine that at some point a big crash is going to make something come loose, and then that will be the time when we can really see what is the problem, if any. So now I'm just rambling. So until such time as I can report anything further, I think I'll just leave it here for now. Thanks again, Chris and Sean, and thank you everybody else for watching, and I'll see you next time.